Okay, it is 9:26:24 at 6 p.m. We will call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded by GCET. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Okay. We don't have to do a roll call because we're all here.
Yeah, you're not.
No, I mean, none of our members are remote. Okay. Public comment?
Actually, I want to welcome, we have a new board member, Kathy Markham. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Kathy spent years working in the schools. I've had the misfortune of knowing me a long time, way too long. And I think will be a great addition. Welcome. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay. So now, any public comment? Councilor Gola, Councilor Perry, Stephanie, Ryan. Yep.
Stephanie Duclos, Chapman Street. Oh my goodness, getting an echo. Hold on.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing public comment. That's pretty much what I just wanted to say. I'm glad that you guys are being recorded now and that the meetings are available online and open to the public and that you're allowing public comment. Thanks.
Okay. Nobody else? All right. So old business, ARPA money update.
Okay. I want to start, and the thing I want to do is recognize Erin Anhalt is the new chief of staff for the mayor's office in City Hall. And Erin reached out to us, to Fern and then to me, to talk about just what can we do to have some better dialogue. And I think that was a great thing for her to do. And we sort of talked about it and how we might go about it. And I think it was agreed that maybe some sort of fresh spaces would be good, and just having people who could sit down and talk. And Fern had also spoken with Erin, and I am 100% confident in anything Fern does for GCET. So the first meeting was with Erin and Fern and the mayor, and I just think it's a good thing. I think dialogue is a good thing. I think, you know, wherever people are, everybody wants GCET to work and recognizes that GCET has to work, and that the ARPA money is a question. And really what I wanted to say was, we talk about ARPA money, but it's really kind of two things that are related to each other. The first thing is the North build, which is not separate, but we tend to think of it different, and the ARPA money that's available is separated out into the North build and other. And I do think that, you know, the mayor has put that money in and has said that she does support the North build going forward, which we appreciate. And that's something that we know has to happen. I'm going to ask Fern to give a little update about Comcast and where we stand a little bit, because we went out to start our work and unfortunately about Comcast hadn't done theirs. So if you want to take a minute and just...
I mean, that is essentially it. So we had received one license, and we are working with IFC, with procurement and the mayor's office to fund the North build. But part of the process is we're doing as much work as we can ourselves. So we did receive one license. Our team went out on, I believe it was Picket Lane first, to pull what we call strand, which is the metal that holds up the fiber. And they recognized that the communications was not moved down for them to work safely and put our fiber in the right, strand in the right place. So we did a drive out of the entire part and recognized that Comcast hadn't done any of it. So I reached out to Comcast, I reached out to Verizon. We're working through what that looks like with them, and hopefully I'll have an update shortly about when that work will be done so that we can continue with the Corinne filled out, and we are separate to do that.
Before we go on, it's just frustrating. We've talked over and over again about the fact that we don't control every aspect of it. We got the license, finally, we've made it to the end, and they hadn't done the work that they were supposed to have done. So it does feel like pushing a car uphill end over end sometimes, but Fern got right to people, and there's no one who wants this to be done more than we do. And we are doing everything we possibly can to move people along. And it should be said that when we got the license, we were out like the next day.
We were.
Getting out to work on stuff. So we will get through this as quickly as we can. I'd love to tell you if it's a place where we find something like this, I'll bet you a whole bunch of money. If not, but we're just going to have to continue to work through these things and stay on top of people and make sure that people do what they say they've done and do what they are required to do. And it's just harder than it should be, frankly.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Could you, for my benefit, I know there's polls and there's fees, but when you talk about a license for something, is it a license that's for a period of time? Is it a license per poll on a location? I feel I've been reading as much as I've had time to read.
It's a license in perpetuity, and it is for a collection of polls. So, and it's mostly because they want to chop it up into numbers that they can effectively survey.
Apparently, my husband can't hear you very well. If you're able to just.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, it's okay. I will say that we don't have our normal conference room mic this time. So we are doing it through the computer. I appreciate it. Thank you for saying that so people can hear us. So the licenses are for collections of polls that are sort of sometimes geographically similar and sometimes not. And we apply for a license which allows us to be on the poll in compliance with the contract that we signed with them. So now we got this license and thought, hey, and it's unfortunate, but once they're done, we will go through and do our work, and then we will be able, in that area for what that license covers, to have the ability to turn on. Remember, everything's got to connect up. So if license number 2 is good to go and license number 1 that connects to it is still not done, we can't light anything up yet. So we talk to them regularly, and we're pushing as hard as we can and still be functional and still have it be a positive and not a negative. And we are making progress because we actually, after all this time, have gotten a license. There's just adjustments that need to be made before we can start our building. So
Thank you.
that's where we are. It's really the same as always. We're making slow forward progress. And as soon as it starts being us able to do the work, that part's going to go a lot faster. We just have to get there.
Yeah, the other part I was gonna say is we're working in IFB. As soon as we feel comfortable putting that out, we'll go ahead and we'll put that out. Through the city. Oh, an invitation for bid. Thank you. Sorry. So we'll put it out and we'll have contractors bid on building out the county fiber. The other part that we had in our last presentation for the ARPA was the conduit that we needed to do underground on Leiden Road. We put that out, a request for quotes, an RFQ. And we have somebody that was awarded it. I sent them the contract today. He told me they can probably get to work within 2 to 3 weeks. And it will take them about a week to complete. So there are parts of the North Build that are still that are moving forward. It's many layers, many steps, but I feel confident that we're getting there.
Yeah, we are.
Do we have a sense of timeline from Comcast?
You can ask forever, and you will never get a timeline from Comcast or Verizon or anyone. They simply will not give you.
Okay, do we have any recourse if they fail to meet their requirements within some timeframe?
We do with Comcast.
Yeah.
So there is, a stipulation within their contract with Verizon that they have to move their service within a certain amount of time. And so they are still within that time frame,
Right.
and therefore there's no recourse.
Okay, what is that timeframe?
I think it's 45 days,
Okay, good.
you know, so
Good.
once they've received the information about.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
But you don't have it with Eversource. So if that's a
No, that's-
problem,
So Eversource has done all of the work, on 2 of the licenses. On the one that we were waiting for the 2, poles to be set, they have done the pole setting. I have to check my notes, but I think they've also transferred their electric over there, but I'm not 100% sure. So they're the ones I'm not worried about.
They're also pole owners. There's a difference between people who own the poles, which is Eversource and Verizon. Comcast has limitations and requirements because they're an attacher. We're technically an attacher. So they do, but if the owners of the poles, the contract reads, they have to make every reasonable effort. It's not, I mean, we're not saying they're just doing nothing. They're just big companies and it moves very slowly and communication is tough. But we don't have the same recourse for Verizon and Eversource that we do for Comcast, because there is nothing specifically written in the contract that says you must get it done by this date. Or, for example, for Comcast, we will hire somebody else. Good. I think the second part of the ARPA money is dealing with the make-ready costs that we inherited from the first general manager. I think maybe you can address the conversation. Aaron, you're welcome to speak up if you'd like to as well.
I mean, this was part of our conversation yesterday, was that I really wanted to make sure that the mayor felt comfortable and understood, what the ask was for the return of the $305,000. So, and if there were outlying questions, what were they? Could I answer them, to make her feel comfortable? I think we're getting there. She did, give Stella, who is also in the room, authorization to move some of that funds back, not all of them at this time. I have hopes that we continue to have that conversation. But essentially, those funds are needed to pay some of the make ready for the legacy full attachments that were done by the previous general manager.
I do want to say that when we first got ARPA money, you have to remember it back in 2019 through 2021-ish, it was not established at all that municipalities had to ask anybody's permission. In fact, there were several legal cases, particularly in Connecticut, where it was ruled that municipalities have the right to put up. There's something called a municipal space, and that municipalities, could just put up fiber and they could offer any service they want out of it. So it was not completely unreasonable for the first group, the first general manager, to say that that was what would happen here. Literally, lawsuits flipped states back and forth for years about what was allowable and what was not allowable. We began in 2019 to think, and I remember talking to the chair going, I don't think we're going to win. I think they're going to come down and say that we have to sign contracts with the pole owners, because it was not clear that we would have to do that. Once we had to sign a contract, everything that was already up immediately became liable for make ready. So everything that was put up in I got here in 2018, everything that was put up in 2016, 2017, and early 2018, immediately, once the final lawsuits had happened, because it's not a state law issue, it's an issue of contract law. And is this an enforceable portion of the contract? And it literally, in the beginning, the municipalities all won, and then in the second round of lawsuits, municipalities all lost. So that at that point, all of the fiber that the first general manager had put up became subject to make ready. And that was something that, for example, when we first applied for ARPA, we didn't have that on there because it wasn't clear to anyone that that was ever going to have to be anything that people needed to do. We did what people do. We got new information, things changed, and we had to adjust. And the thing that I want to say about the legacy make ready is it is separate from the North Build, but it does affect it because a network is only as good as its connections. And we have our main point of presence here in the core of town. And if we don't pay for the make ready that we inherited, then we are not able to use that section of fiber. So we can build the North Build, and it's great that we are. It's great that we're working together to get that done. I do appreciate that. But everybody needs to know that if the core can't be used, then it doesn't matter if we build it. So we are very repetitive, and we are very strong in saying that money, it's not just because we want it. It's because it has to address something that was a development of the general legal landscape in all New England states, and frankly, it's all over the country now, that said, here was an expense that you didn't think you were going to have, but you do, and it's a big one. So working our way through that is something we've been working on for years. We've paid make ready primarily in the North Build, and the $305,000 for us was a way to address make ready that was for the things that were built prior to this group taking over. It won't cover absolutely everything, but we've frankly done a really good job getting in grants to help cover other issues. This year, as we said last year, we had two really large one-time expenses in our budget last year that were really the end of having to pay off a really large retirement amount because there used to be twice as many staff at GCET and 1/10 of the customers that we have now. And when you have that many staff, you have to set aside for retirement. So there was years worth of cleanup. And this is the one thing left. Make ready is a big number. Of course, people want to know exactly how much is it going to cost? Exactly when are you going to be done? It just doesn't work that way. I know I've said it before. I know people aren't satisfied because everybody wants to know what's it going to cost me when it's going to be done. I can't tell you that. No one can because we haven't been told by EverSource and Verizon. They know we want it. And they're working towards it. No one should leave here thinking we think EverSource and Verizon are terrible. We don't. They've been helpful in a lot of ways. But that's just the reality of it. We can build the North Build and make it perfect. And if we don't address the legacy make ready, it won't matter. So everybody just needs to know that. I know that the mayor has said that that money is not been spent, that it's still available if, and that we want to go step by step. And I'm feeling very comfortable having Fern and Aaron talk about this and to see how we can work towards putting invoices in and answering questions, and even more having sort of a methodology of how questions and answers would work so we can have them be goal-oriented. But it's not like the mayor took it and spent it on something else. Nobody should think that. And that's something that again, it is something that we need to continue to talk about. City Hall has been open to talking to us about this, and we're going to continue to be a broken record and say, this is why we need this. Everybody always could use money to spend on anything. We need it. And that's why we had it in the first place. That's why the previous mayor allocated the money to us. And so working together is a whole lot better than fighting. So trying to work together and get to the point where we can have that money go towards liabilities that there are contracts against, that there are interested third parties, which is a legal term, meaning we signed a contract. In Massachusetts, you have to have a source of funds to sign a contract. After you sign the contract, you can't take the source of funds. So we all know where we have to go. I do think that it is true that we may have a different understanding of the importance of certain parts of this, but everybody knows that GCET has to be a success, because if it's not, then it ultimately will fall back on the city. So that money that was allocated has to stay, and the process to go through that. I said last Wednesday, we're happy to answer people's questions. We have for months. We've answered questions from counselors. We've answered questions from City Hall, and we'll continue to do so.
Sorry, I was trying to clarify a number. We're good.
Okay.
I agree with you.
No, it's okay. We're all set.
I'm
All set.
sorry.
No, that was
Yeah.
all I had to say. I really appreciate Aaron reaching out, and I appreciate a dialogue that is working to be constructive on all sides, because that's what we need. It needs to get done, and we can't get sidetracked off of anything. There is no option to just go, I guess we have to. Do you want to add anything else?
Aaron does.
Hi, Aaron, would you like to add something?
I do. I want to say how glad I am that I've had the opportunity to talk to Fern so much, and John a little bit, but mostly Fern.
Mhm.
She sat down and explained how this works. I did not know anything at all about how the internet works. I thought it was.
Well, we haven't even got there.
Oh,
yet.
yeah. I assumed Al Gore was serious when he said it was a series of tubes. Like, I was wrong. I do feel a lot, I think I probably said it 20 times yesterday. I'm a comms person, and I like to talk about it, and I like to communicate and figure out how to communicate. And the way that we're asking questions and discussing things and coming back to the table to really go through stuff is how we get to the end goal that we all want, which is for GCET to succeed. Everybody in town wants GCET to succeed. And I know all of you in this room are frustrated. I know the mayor's frustrated. The counselors, I'm sure, are frustrated. The people in town are frustrated because it takes a long time. And I didn't understand exactly why until, and I don't think any of us still understand exactly why, because it really should go faster. There's so many moving parts, but it feels like it should move faster. And everyone's doing their best here to get it to move faster, but it just doesn't. So those things are really important to continue to communicate and understand. And like, I know I came away yesterday having learned a lot. I'm so thankful for it. There are still questions that are coming, and we left the meeting yesterday, and we left, Vern knew what the questions were. Like, we understand, like, we returned the 300,000, that would maybe cover like what, 4 licenses out of the how many more there are to do the stuff like that. So it's definitely important that we understand why, but there are questions about how, like, even an estimate about the total, and it's hard to give. I get that. I'm not even asking for that right now, but those questions exist, and I think that as the mayor's office, her responsibility is oversight and allocation of funds and appropriating things properly. I'm sure Stella has more, because I don't know numbers at all, which I say all the time, but
I'm new to the table, although I recognize some people from, since I've been here. Tell me if I'm not speaking clear enough.
I don't know. John, can you hear?
No.
John,
Maybe just louder on
Rachel,
general
Catherine.
principle.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
B, so I only have a little time to act like a newbie, before I'm not a newbie. I'm gonna say something as, for somebody who has a home in a very small town in the Berkshires, that still, as you know, does not have any broadband or anything, which is why I can't live there full time. When you said, we all want GCET to be, as somebody who is a resident in my own town, what we all want is affordable, accessible internet broadband service to the residents, to the community of Greenville. That's really what we want. How we get there may not necessarily mean the option we've chosen. It's really, we all want affordable, accessible broadband throughout the city. We don't want citizens to be held captive by a large capitalistic, monolithic corporation that can just change their rates at a whim or the product they're offering for service. And that's what I would ask as a citizen of my little town, that they keep that as what we all want. How we get there may not be the path that we've chosen, may not be the way we get to what we say we all want. So I just want to put that out there first. And then I want to also put out, as the finance director now, that is to tie into what Erin said, that this ARPA money didn't come to us for just one purpose. It came to us to support the city across the board. So when I looked at, I took on this role and I looked at where the funding had gone to, there are numerous departments. There are many continuing now, including mine, where we've had a lot of transition, where we've had unexpected expenses, not expenses that were lurking there, not liabilities as you described, this legacy problem, but that have arisen because of things happening now and going forward. My responsibility with the mayor, as Erin said, is to make sure that we are doing our very best due diligence to make sure the funds are used in the best interest of the city, a city that's comprised of so many departments, so many services, so many people, so many needs, to set priorities, to make sure we're using it also in compliance with what the intention of ARPA is. And to make sure that when we do use it, that we have accountability. We have to be able to say, okay, we believe this is in compliance with the intentions of ARPA, but now we actually have the plan. We have contracts in place. We have timelines. We have amounts. We have that. And we now have a responsibility as managers, as stewards of this money, as receivers of this money, to make sure that we are accountable to that plan as we have presented to the city, as we have executed contract purchase orders. Now, given that kind of money, that kind of required compliance and stewardship, it also might mean that while it's money that we all see it, we might have, as I used to say in the banking world, we have a mismatch between the money and its intention and the purpose. And so when I hear this, I hear, is it possible that while the needs are totally legitimate, the discovering that you have this big liability related to legacy, is it possible that's legitimate? Absolutely. But is this the pot of money we should all be fighting over? Because this pot of money has its own type of criteria, requirements, compliance, and it also is a pot of money that was not designated. Now, mayors could have said, and I know I wasn't here, so I'm not going to opine on it, but I do know from seeing all this money flowing to many organizations that it came with intention, with an intent of purpose, not an intent of a specific department or product or function. And that's what I think we're struggling with here. It is, yes, it is a pot of money. Yes, you're right, the pot is still there. Do I have a lot of departments coming and saying, oh my God, look what happened. I need, this isn't in my budget, this is my budget. And I think that's where I think our struggle is, because of the pot of money that everybody sees. Some believe that it was already intended, yet still intention is not, has to be by the end of this year, calendar year, has to manifest itself in a purchase order or a contract. And I just reread those ARPA rules again before I came. So I wonder if it's important that we identify the needs and know what they are and why they are. But maybe we're all looking at a stream of funds that is really mismatched.
So I'm happy to continue the dialogue on that, because I think, I have tried to make it very clear that we have a contract, that we had purchase orders, the money was encumbered for a specific purpose. The broadband is defined within ARPA very specifically, right? So yes, 100%, we need to make sure that we're using it for the things that best suit ARPA and our community. And I think everyone in this room would stand by the fact that this is the best use. It also was already encumbered. We had contracts, we had purchase orders. I'm happy to continue having that conversation and try to make sure that we move that forward.
So
And just on the, as far as the other forms of other pots of money, there's only 3 ways for us to pay for this legacy expense. Through ARPA, increasing rates on current users, or through property taxes. Because as you know, if GCET runs in the red, the difference gets paid, goes on onto the property tax. So technically, we can run in the red. We haven't in the last 4 years, 4 years. But if this expense, which we know to be an expense that has to be done, has to be paid, if we don't pay for it with ARPA funding, then it's still gonna have to get paid. So we either raise fees or we put it on to the recap.
So what I would say is that this exchange is a really good indicator of why the dialogue has to continue, because there are people who have misconceptions about what's happened, about what the status of things are. These were things that were allocated and encumbered before many of us were even here. So again, let's keep having some dialogue so we can get to a place where there's a common understanding of what was allocated by previous administrations, because it's easy to say lots of different things about ARPA, but we need to make sure that we're constructive. The thing I would add to this conversation is a municipal light plan is the legal mechanism by which a city can offer internet in the state of Massachusetts. So we need to remember that when we talk about tabs, when we talk about who can do the work that needs to be done. So again, I think this is a good indication that this kind of dialogue is good for all of us. So we can all get on the same page and understand and have a common understanding of the history of what's happened and why people are in the positions that they're in, because it's really easy to make assumptions that turn out not to be true. So.
Can I just ask a question to clarify? Are you saying that you questioned whether ARPA funds can be spent on this?
I'm saying I'm new, and that it is very important that we make sure we're all clear that this is a legitimate use of ARPA, which is the paying for the legacy specifically, something that happened, and I'm new, so maybe there was already a legal opinion.
ARPA is specifically for the development. Broadband internet is one of the absolutely called out, along with water and sewer, that one of the featured infrastructure. It is one of the most highly recommended by the federal government as use of ARPA money. And the Make Ready process, which includes the paying of Make Ready, is absolutely 100% right down the middle an approved and legitimate use of ARPA. And that's why this has been something, that argument was settled a long time.
And you mean, the argument is, what I was talking about was not the Make Ready going forward, But to make ready for the stuff that was.
There's no difference. As far as the grant is concerned, and as far as the suitability of ARPA money for it, there's no, that is the distinction without a difference. Make ready is make ready. It is an integral part of the development of any network, no matter at what stage you do it. So that I'm happy to be able to tell you that it is absolutely something that is, there's no need for a legal opinion. It is literally in ARPA. So, yes.
If I can just say, I received this on the 19th of this month, but this is the GCET attorney's letter, the 6-page letter by Donna McNichols that was addressed to the mayor in May.
Mhm.
So this does explain what ARPA can be spent on, but it does give some case studies, court case studies. And it was sent to the mayor in May. And I just think it's important to know that because, you know, there are attorneys involved, obviously. We have our attorney, there's another attorney. When I first became a member as a commissioner, I was given Donna McNichols information, which I found very helpful. So I'm also very pleased that this is an ongoing conversation. I just wanted to point that out to the public because it seems unpleasant at times. It certainly was unpleasant last city council meeting for a number of people.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. I think I was appalled and I spoke my 3 minutes, but I think people need to know this is a lot of back and forth, and if the mayor has questions as an oversight person, I think she's entitled to ask those questions. I'm pleased to hear that Vern is working with Aaron. I know you had numerous meetings, John, with the city hall, all of you, over there answering questions. I mean, these email threads, more than 9 separate emails, go on and on and on and on, back and forth with a guy named Phil that I have to go back and say, now who is Phil, the procurement? You know, so.
I was just gonna ask you, Phil.
Yeah, I'm telling you, because it goes to every city councilor, and I'm not a city councilor, but I can guarantee they're not reading with a fine-tooth comb, pages and pages and pages of stuff, because they have a lot of constituents, and most of them have full-time jobs, as an example. So I want that just, you know, clear. And if there was something where lawyers have to be involved, I'm assuming it goes to a vote on the board.
Well, no, that's actually something that's under the purview. I'm glad you brought that up, because the whole point about this is it's better not to have lawyers.
Well,
That's
certainly.
why starting a dialogue, again, is a good and healthy thing to do. Because even after all those email threads, even after all the meetings, there's still clearly some misconceptions about ARPA and about GCET and about who has what role in oversight. So that's the kind of thing that a good dialogue helps make clear in a way that's just more constructive. Usually, if you end up in court, it's because there's been a real failure of communication. You have to, legal opinions are very common in municipalities because when there are disagreements, that's how you stake out your position. But I can tell you, my desire is that a dialogue will get everybody onto the same page and get everyone understanding what the rules are and why things were done, instead of saying we need to start all over and question everything again. I think that's really a clear benefit of having new dialogue. That's what I think should continue. That's what I think is by far the most efficient and best way to make sure that people understand what needs to happen, that people understand the various authorities of the different groups that are involved here, and how all those people can maybe worry a little less about authority and more about trying to work together to get it done. So that's what I hope comes out of this. That's why I was in favor of it from the first time we talked. And that's really the way that we need to go forward. There's, you know, I have statutory responsibility. My job is actually created by the legislature. And my job as the general manager to protect ratepayers, to protect GCET. And there are times when you need to use a legal opinion. It's not a weapon. It's just a way to be really clear and to make things clear. And I don't want to go back and forth over and over tonight about this. I think that the dialogue that's set up is the proper venue for that. I'm not trying to stop anybody who has questions.
I'll just keep going. So I just want to ask an informational question. So you said that, yeah, you're right. Legal counsel opinions are and often have to happen because we have different understandings, statute, legislation, authority, governance, who has what. So I'm just wondering, since I'm new, do we have one legal point where we can bring all our stuff, and then when this is considered, do we have a point where we say, okay, we all got our points, we see the difference, they come up with their opinion? Because I'm so conscious of legal tick, 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 tickers. I hate to see the, the pot. So do we, and I mean the city, GCET, everything, have we agreed upon to one legal source to resolve our differences so that once it will be resolved and we'll all go our merry ways, understanding?
Well, my answer to that is that GCET has its own counsel, and one legal authority in this context is arbitration. When you get a legal opinion, it assumes that there is some level of disagreement about the
GCET has its own legal representative.
and always has.
And so the city, I know,
Yeah,
also has a lawyer.
absolutely.
So then how do we resolve if the lawyers are coming back with different opinions? What happens then?
Does the town lawyer have a different opinion on that?
Not
They
to
have
my,
not issued- yeah.
not to my
I
knowledge,
do not
no.
believe he has issued an
No.
opinion.
So we asked the mayor yesterday, so I know that she hasn't talked to Gordon about it, but she doesn't have an opinion, but she said she does have our opinion, in hand, so.
And what I'm saying is, generally how that works is you trade legal opinions and then you sit down and talk again, and if you can't come to some resolution, you go to
Bill
court.
hours going. That's what
That's
No, what you do is you go to court. The point I was making here, that's not what anybody should want to see here. And we should be talking respectfully to each other and making sure that we understand that the different stakeholders have a chance to have what they need to say said, and that we come to some agreement. There's a big difference between the need to clarify things through legal opinion and the idea that that inevitably starts a cascade of legal fighting. That's not true at all. And
it doesn't, nobody wants that.
no, nobody wants that. You're right. And so there is no single point because GCET is not a department of the city. We don't report to the mayor. Oversight for the general manager comes from the GCET board. It is absolutely true that the mayor is the administrator of the ARPA grant. So she, for sure, has a say in how the ARPA grant is, and that's how the administration of grants works. So again, it's just another real reason why dialogue, particularly since this project started under one administration and is now working under another administration, that anybody who needs to get brought up to speed to understand how all the different parts of this work has a chance to be brought up to speed, and that we can find a way to talk about it that doesn't increase everybody's billable hours, because nobody wants to do that.
Can you help me just a second?
Okay, and then we're going to move on.
Then we'll move. Now, what is this thing I keep hearing about in being incorporated? I tried to really read those chapters you had recommended to understand what a municipal light program is for cities. I didn't see anything that, well, at least I don't remember seeing anything. What is this whole thing about, whether you're incorporated or not?
I can answer that. It is not a thing. It never was a thing. There was originally a draft document the mayor brought to our attention. We said, no, Mayor, this is a draft. It's never been
Originally
voted
from
on.
what year? I'm sorry. Originally.
Mayor Martin, it was before 2016. MLP corporation. I know the mayor reached out to several other MLPs and for the same thing. And so, and I know the mayor did in fact talk with a lawyer for that too, and was told by that lawyer, because we heard her say it in a meeting we were at, that the establishing legislation, the Acts of 2017, is the only valid document as far as GCET is concerned and any MLP is concerned. MLPs are specifically created by an act from the governor. So again, this is a great example, because this was a question that was asked and answered a long time ago. So, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
and you're not,
I'm asking.
and we could go back to the last, no, I'm just saying, this happened before, when the council at that time, which I happened to sit on at the time, the council was bringing forward for the citizens to vote whether even to create this. And Mayor Martin, and I gotta give Mayor Martin credit for having this idea to even, to hey, let's start an internet. That sounds like a thing to do. There was nothing really to look at. You know, there was no, how they do it in Turner's, you know, that didn't exist. So whoever, and I don't even know who wrote the draft, came up with, this is how we're gonna do it. Because there was no roadmap to how this should be done, because it was so new. Right. And then I had never even seen that draft.
No, we had never.
And I was on the council that voted to put it on the ballot. You know, maybe I did, I couldn't tell you, but it wasn't a thing.
Right.
So that's that.
Right. So there is no, MLPs have no articles of incorporation. We are not private corporations. We are not nonprofits. We are an independent entity of Greenfield that's created by state legislation. And that's this, I don't say it's good or bad or anything else. It's just how the law works. And the only establishing legislation for GCET is the Act of 2017 signed by then Governor Baker that established the MLP, and Chapter 164, which is the law that underpins everything that MLPs do. Okay.
I promise this is my last meeting.
Okay.
And these are important questions, and if you want to, we could all together, I think, sit and kind of talk all day about the different models. No, but no, that's important, because one of the things that we do when we're not involved in something like this for months is we look at how best to do this work. And we look at what other towns, what other states, what other models are out there, right? Because the way that we make this thing work is we spend our money wisely on labor and materials, smart engineering, and a good business plan to increase revenue. That's really what this is, right? And so to do that, we have to understand what's possible. Some of that is also trying to get ahead of things that change on us legislatively in the utility world, and understanding what other communities are doing, locking themselves into proprietary equipment, things like that, learning from others' mistakes and fix that. So that is part of what we do as a board and talk about. That's a lot of what the professionals are doing all day.
Okay. So I'm going to move on now to, oh, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
it's okay.
did have one more.
Okay, go ahead.
I, again, want to echo everyone about communication. There's a lot to discuss. And no matter what, if in 6 months, everybody is still angry that everything didn't go, you know, and we're frustrated, we still have to work together.
Absolutely.
And I am glad that there are communication paths being forged and moving forward. And ultimately, there's still a lot of work to do, not just with ARPA, but across the board. Like, after this point is done, there's still bringing all the old licenses, or probably not old licenses, but from the previous work, legacy, that's the word. Those still have to be done with the make ready, and that costs a lot of money, and it's a lot more money. And I think that having these conversations to really focus on, there's a lot to do still, and we're going to have to make decisions again and again about how to pay for things, and beyond ARPA, like, it's a lot. So that is really important to remember, because people want, like Stella said, to have equitable, fair internet access for all, and it takes a lot to get there. I think it takes a lot more than people maybe even knew when they came into GCET. Like,
I think that's
Oh, 100%
yeah,
true.
100%.
I think for instance, something like, I can't imagine somebody thought we could do this for $5 million
Yeah.
total. And that's an important thing to recognize.
Yep.
This is a lot more money than people thought it was going to be at the beginning.
I can
And-
say that I actually advise Mayor Mark that.
Well, then you.
It's also essential to keep making the point that the debt that we have is paid by ratepayers. Because a lot of the misinformation and misunderstanding is perpetuated through conversation in the public sphere. And that it's just, we need to keep sort of returning to that. That this is, the ARPA Act, which is not local taxpayer property dollars, is external funding that otherwise we do not use external funding other than grants that come entirely from outside the town. And so that's, you know, not to toot our horn, but, you know, that is something that, you know, Fern and her team have been exceptionally good at. And so our main goal is to bring additional resources to do that, to increase our revenue, right? This is not, we don't want to be leaning on the town for funds, frankly. It's not a position that we're happy to be in. There are a number of other, you know, situations in addition to the retirement debt and some other things that have happened that have, you know, still left us less able to self-fund capital outlay.
Speaking of other sources of revenue.
Yeah.
So today, we got the final contract. We literally got it like an hour before this meeting started for the GAP grant. The GAP grant is a grant that is a federal grant that is administered by GCET. And the point of the GAP grant is to find places in town that had no service, didn't have GCET service, but didn't have any service at all. And it tends, unsurprisingly, it's on the periphery of town. It's certain areas that didn't have service, and GCET was awarded just over $750,000 to address this. That money would go towards buying of equipment, the labor involved in running more fiber. We have well over 100 miles of fiber that we already have up in the city, but there's more that needs to happen. So make ready can be paid by this. So it's a very good thing. In the state of Massachusetts, 4 organizations were approved for GAP: Comcast, Verizon, Charter, and GCET. We were the only MLP that was, this is administered by the Massachusetts Broadband Institute, MBI, and we were the only one that passed the competitive bid process, and we're the only one that were funded that wasn't one of the 3 major telecom giants. And we're very proud of that. We have a good plan, we have good people, and that is something that will help us get to some new places, but also we get to go through neighborhoods to get to those places, so it will help us bring service to new people as well. We still have to go through, so they send the contract, we look at it, we have our lawyer look at it, and then we go back and forth like you do with contracts, and we will get that signed, and that is something that will happen over the next several years. But that is a really nice addition for us.
Not the contract negotiation.
No.
Not the contract.
That won't take something.
No. In addition to that, the other thing I would want to say is that we found out a week ago Monday, but we're embargoed until really the evening of the council meeting last Wednesday, that we are also the recipient of a residential retrofit grant. And we applied for that grant for the specific purpose of bringing high-speed internet to the Weldon. The point of residential retrofit is to make sure that the issue that is not just a greenfield issue, it's literally all over this country. Many of the larger buildings that house not just low mod, but low mod and senior residents in apartments are very old. And the cost to retrofit buildings like that for internet is just astronomical. So the government has recognized that and stepped in, and we have been awarded about $500,000 to do all the work that's necessary. It's literally a stone building with no chases. There's no easy way to go from floor to floor other than drilling through concrete and stone to get that done. I'm really happy about this one. I went early. The mayor was there too. We went to some early public discussions about needs at the Weldon. And we worked with the building owners. We talked a lot with residents at the Weldon. And ultimately, the building owners made it clear that we were the people that they wanted to work with to bring this in. So that is 105 units, I'm pretty sure it's 105 units that of people who really need some assistance and don't have reliable internet at the moment, and we'll be able to bring it to them in very affordable ways. So that was a really great thing that we just really found out about. So we spent a lot of time going after grants because we do know it's an expensive thing. We do know that it's a complicated thing. We're going to continue to go after grants that we can go for. And frankly, just the times in the aftermath of the pandemic, there were more grants available than often are. Another grant is coming up, the BEAD grant. There's a lot of restrictions on BEAD, but we are looking to see if there's anything that we can apply for there. We have an excellent relationship with NBI, which we have cultivated and developed, and they have come to us on a number of cases and said, we would like to work with you. So we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to keep trying to find as many different ways as we can, because you're absolutely right, Aaron. $5 million to do everything was never anywhere close to enough money. The cost per passing at $5 million in Greenfield is about a third of what it is for everybody. So it just wasn't. And one of the ways that you square that circle is you just keep applying for grants, and you just keep proving to the people who give the grant that you are worthy recipients of it and that you can get this work done. And so far this year, we've had a pretty good year doing that. So between GAP and residential retrofit, we're going to be able to get to a bunch more people. There is another round of residential retrofit. We have to be realistic with ourselves. We're a small team. There's half of the amount of staff here that there was initially. And we have to make sure that if we apply for more grants, that we can administrate it properly without making people's heads explode. So that's something that we're looking at, as well as the BEAD too. But grants are crucial, and that's nothing new. Broadband is infrastructure. There are grants for single stream recycling. There are grants for water. There are grants for sewer. I remember that literally the water treatment plant in this town was built because people got a grant. That's just the way that it works in our country, and it's not going to change. So going after those grants is a really important thing for us to be doing. So.
Can I make two
Absolutely.
comments? One, I just want to clarify, because I heard John say, the GAP grant will pay for some Make Ready. I want to be very clear that that is not paying for any of the legacy Make Ready. That is for new build Make Ready, right? So I think there's some miscommunication or understanding about what we can do with grants. And it is very specific for a purpose, and I cannot change that, right, even if I wanted to.
What do you think so what was there anything specific in the grant documentation about not paying for past life?
Yeah, yep, so we have to
And
pay
you
for
think that,
No,
well,
you
in
said
the
past liability.
not past, it is a liability.
For the gap grant?
Yeah, you just corrected John and said.
Oh, I didn't correct. I
You
wanted
said
to
it's not
clarify.
including- Or you not clarified, that the make ready, that this gap grant money can be used for is not for legacy related make ready.
Right, so it's new build out, because that's what, yeah, that's what gap grant is, it's new build out going to specific locations. And
I
very, yeah, so very
And so-
specific.
So that, understand that clarification. And so then my next question was there any language specific in that grant that talks about why it will not cover the legacy?
It doesn't need to,
Yeah.
because that's not how grants work.
I-
Grants work just, you ask a question, let me answer you. Grants are very specific. That is what you get when you spend public money. You have to tell the grant and the people who give the grant exactly what you're going to do with it. They tell you exactly what you can do with it, and you have to work those two together. I've never in my entire career seen the kind of language that you're talking about. So when
I think what
we
our
get-
point is that if it said it there, well, why didn't it say it in the ARPA grant?
because ARPA is
Again, it's kind of compare.
ARPA
And,
sure, ARPA is different. ARPA is a grant that had a broader availability of uses than almost any other grant, and it was really a direct function of the necessity after the pandemic to get money out quickly. And there were less reporting requirements for ARPA. There were less, it was still targeted, but the ability to be flexible with ARPA money is different than any other grant.
That's what I was just gonna ask. I wanted to be able to compare and contrast. And I agree with you. From my 30 years of working with nonprofits who were predominantly grant funded, both privately and by states and federal, I would see many times, here's your allowable expenses
Yeah,
and money.
yeah.
But it also would say, here's your disallowable expenses.
Sure.
So I have a little contention from my 30 years of experience with grant funding, that there is oftentimes language that will explain why they will not allow you to apply the funds, why they will allow you to apply the funds. And that's all I was clarifying.
I'm just gonna split a hair there and say, you know, I'm a nonprofit person and I do a lot of grants. I do the grants on the programmatic side. That's what I'm most familiar with. When you get into infrastructure and construction, it's extremely different. And so, you know, there's a completely different person in my organization who is that person, and we don't speak the same language. And so we really don't, we can't, you know, and so, I mean, I literally can't speak the language. But, so I think it's, you know, it's just, it is a really different set of, you know, when you get into spending public dollars, especially federal dollars on building and construction and those kinds of contracts, it's just, it's such a different space than programmatic funds and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's brutal, so.
The only other thing I was gonna say, every time we build out and we look at the retrofit, and there's 105 locations, we're building revenue too. So we're doing something great. We're bringing service to people that need it. I mean, that is my initial goal with the gap grant and with the retrofit is I hear a need, I want to fill that need. The benefit of our organization is that we build profit, and that will help with the legacy problem that we have. It will help us, you know, continue to be in the block as long as everything goes as planned.
That's one of the things that I always tell people, and not my house is in service, but she said, is they look over the course of years. You know, we always say, North Sam's good, right? Always say, we want to be in everybody's house that we can be in. One, because we want to deliver affordable services. We know nothing against any other town department, but we've saved those users in Greenfield hundreds of millions of dollars because they used to pay, now what they're paying, that they can spend on their property taxes and help the schools, or whatever the case may be. Sure. Or to buy cars, or the.
And the city, you save the city.
And we save the city because we.
I talked with the IT director about that, and somewhere in between $75,000 and $100,000 a year that we save the city because we continually add new services. We've added what's called a BPLS. It's way for different departments to talk securely to each other without having to go out to the internet. We've done a number of them this year, and we haven't ever changed any price to the city, and we just keep adding in new things that we don't charge for at all. I do think that is a core part of our mission. Supporting public safety particularly is something that we really think is important to do, because both police and fire and schools all use GCET. Sorry.
But the point being is it's to the benefit of GCET users, property tax payers, homeowners, everybody, for us to expand. So we want to be there as fast as we can be there, but we have to do it with a lot of other people, a lot of other organizations that have a lot of control over how that happens.
Yep.
Unlike if the town wants to dig up a street and put a new water line in, the town can do that. They don't have to ask permission to the street owner. We want to run we want fiber, well, we don't own the place where we run fiber, or we run into the problem. And I have friends that live in neighborhoods that are newly built, and I say newly agreed for that to be 20 years. And I say, well, you don't have utility poles. If you don't have utility poles, at this point, we're a business that runs off utility poles. Hopefully down the road, we will be, running conduit underneath the ground. But at this point, if you don't have a utility pole, it's very hard for us to do it, but we want to.
The next item for us, if we're feeling like we can move past this, is updates on ongoing the project. We kind of did that with the North Build and for ARPA. So originally we had the idea that we may go into executive session to discuss trade secrets or confidential and competitively sensitive or other proprietary information, or to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation. I don't think we need that. I think that's not something that this month that we have to do. I think that what we've talked about all night here is that continuing dialogue and continuing to work together and making sure that we're helping everybody understand and that everybody's trying to be respectful to everybody else is the way for us to make things work in not just the most pleasant manner, but everybody likes it when it's pleasant, but it's also by far the most efficient time-wise and cost-wise for us to get things done. So I don't, if you wish to, you can, but I don't see the need for that tonight.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I'm just afraid people don't say let's adjourn and everybody goes, yeah. It's so helpful to me, if we could take a look at October and come up with a possible date while we're in this room.
No, that's an excellent point.
Because when Fern and I looked at that date, there was only sustainability, and then there's 3 other meetings plus the others that fit on the calendar. So all of a sudden there's massive, zoning board of appeals and this and that, and like, it fills right in.
I will just say again, John, that I will be traveling much of the night.
Fair enough.
You get to go away?
Yeah, I'm on a road trip. Our
baseline is we try to do it the 3rd Thursday of the month. It often doesn't work because it's a busy group. That would be the 17th. It may be that the 24th might be a better time
You
for
lose me on
people.
the 17th, you lose it on the 24th, so
And
take away.
it must be every third, but we don't have, I'm on a board that we meet in the summertime every third Wednesday, and every other month we meet every third Thursday.
So, let me ask this. What I'd like to do is ask you guys to give me your availability, and I will, and if you can get it to me tomorrow, then I will match it all up and we will figure out what day in the evening works best for everybody. If we can do it before the 19th, lucky you, we will, because if we can try to accommodate people's schedules, I think we should. So given that, I'm not sure, Helen, that we can come to a specific date right now.
We'd be in trouble if we had more than this in numbers.
Yes, we would.
Like, now we can still have a quorum with one missing, is that correct?
With two missing.
Oh,
Kathy,
still
you
have-
raised your hand. Were you gonna say you're going away somewhere?
No, I have a commitment on using the fourth Thursday.
That would be Halloween.
And I am too. I have 2 kids.
1,
On
2,
Halloween.
3, 4. No,
I mean,
no,
everything
no,
else is
Yeah, you're right. Okay, all right.
But then
So,
that can change too, so they're meeting tonight.
Okay.
Which I'm missing to be here,
okay,
so,
And it doesn't have to be a Thursday.
I
No.
prefer-
well, that's what I was gonna ask, is that gonna be a-
no. I think at this point, the thing to do is for people to give their schedules to see if we can make sure, and if you can get it to me tomorrow, I'll just do it tomorrow, and we'll send it out to everybody tomorrow with the date.
You want in that week of the 17th or
I
all of
think,
October?
I think we should say in October, because we've had this problem quite often at meetings where it's just a busy group.
Yeah.
And, we've done doodle polls and that sort of works, but, you know, that doodle polls, yes, it's very.
Yeah, that'll teach you.
Yeah,
The new one.
yeah, but I think best if you guys can just give me your schedules, I will look for.
I'm gonna ask a couple more questions.
Absolutely.
Is daytime okay for you?
Yeah, I can usually
Yeah.
often.
And you too?
Okay.
This week, so,
Why does it have to be at 6?
well, my job is not in town, so,
Right.
so that's,
Yeah.
you know. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, my schedule becomes a lot more complicated to explain if it's during business hours.
Oh, okay.
We used to meet during the day, but it was just so hard to get everybody
Yeah.
together. that-
yeah, but it's good, I just, knowing that the newer member,
I'm-
that
but I'm-
was a constraint, that's
I
fine.
have one question.
Okay, so anytime day or night in October.
Anytime.
Please, I think I am.
October,
Not
The
sure.
great
barring-
news is still not that many things.
right. No Saturdays, no Saturdays, no Sundays, no holidays. Other than that, we're all good. Okay?
6 AM is wide open.
I don't know if that.
All right.
Because if I need
No problem, I'm just always-
30 is.
I'm early, right?
I know, I'm making it work.
Oh, I'm on. There you go.
Yeah, I'm
So do we have a motion to adjourn? Seconded. Seconded, all in favor?